You are listening to the Billy Dees podcast.
We are waiting just a minute for everyone to engage the live stream. Remember, you can find the Billy Dees podcast on your favorite platform.
All right. Well, hello. Welcome, everyone, to the live stream on X. We wait just a moment. We're kind of like a minute in with the intro for everyone to refresh their app or whatever it is that they're doing. Make sure that they can lock on to the live stream. With me is Cynthia. I'll do a formal introduction here in just a second. And I think we're ready to go. All right, here we go. All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. My name is Billy Dees. If you've never been here before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast. We go live once a week on Friday night, and that's almost always a commentary and opinion program. With me tonight is Cynthia Elliott. Cynthia, how are you? Welcome to the program. First of all, you're all smiles over there, and what's going on?
You know, I took the day off and did absolutely nothing, so I'm all smiles because I'm so incredibly relaxed.
Well, that's good. I'm so glad that you are relaxed. What we're going to talk about today, this is going to be interesting. We try to cover a couple things, but I ran across a really good topic that Cynthia presented. Now, the way I understand this, you first presented this on X. Mm-hmm. And it had to do with the sexualization, or more specifically, maybe the objectification of the female form. Would that be a better way to do it?
Yeah.
In AI depictions. So when you see AI graphics, robotics, and so on and so forth, they're almost always some sort of a sexual being, some sort of a sexual creature. And I guess she presented this as a topic on X, and as a follow-up, she wrote a bit of an essay, which I have on my screen here, that I'm going to, just as some notes that I can, bounce some things off of her as we go along. But first of all, let's start with X. What exactly did you present on X? And I know you got a big reaction. Tell us a little bit about that first.
Yeah, it's interesting. Mario Neufeld,
Mm-hmm.
who's very popular on X, and I really appreciate his content, but he had posted something showing a new robot, a relatively new, I guess they're all relatively new. And I made the comment because she had really long fingernails and really long hair and really unnaturally large lips. And I was like, why
Mm-hmm.
why are all robots and AI hyper sexualizing or hyper feminizing women? Because it's a problem, whether people want to admit it or not. They're like, oh, it's just marketing. No, it's not just marketing. Anyway, I made this comment asking that question, like, why is this happening? Why are we not talking about it? And I got quite a few men came up in there, well, like, seemingly men, because you never know with X, and they were like, you're just, women are no longer needed. And I got some positive comments of people saying, thank you for bringing this topic up. But I got a lot of like, men, seemingly men saying, get over it. And it's like, no, we shouldn't get over it because we have daughters and children and we're changing the world right now. And this is the time to have this conversation as these things are being created and say, why must most of the female, once they make them feminine looking, they either look like a robot or they look like a porn star.
Right. Interesting.
And I noticed that, I've been using AI for 3 years, and I remember getting upset 3 years ago because I would put in cyborg, female cyborg, and I would get an image of a woman with these ridiculously large, unnaturally high and plump features. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't just ask for a female robot and she doesn't come out looking this way. And it's actually a conversation that needs to be had because we're in the process of developing these things now. We need to have these conversations now and say, why are we doing this? And why is this considered just okay or normal? Because it's not.
Yes. There's a lot of layers to this, and I'm not exactly sure how to peel this onion because there's a lot of layers to this.
Yeah.
For the audience, let me just give some context, all right, for better or for worse. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but I'm gonna give you some context here. I'm gonna put something up on the screen here, and if you don't know what this is, the movie camera was, and here again, if you're listening, what I'm showing is a very old picture of a horse galloping, and what this was done for is this is actually why the movie camera was invented. Okay. And why it was invented was to settle a bet on whether or not all of the hoofs at one point or another leave the ground when a horse is running. And I'll put it right there. And as you can tell, when all of the hoofs are underneath the horse, they do leave the ground. Okay. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because what do you think the next thing was that they did with their new invention? Somebody said, you could take pictures of naked women with this. Okay. And those things do exist. I'm not going to show them because I don't want to get into any trouble, but those things do exist. And I presume there are still some things never change, right? So I'm sure they're still kind of provocative, even though they're probably grainy images. But this has gone on for a long, long time. I mean, we could even make arguments. There's pornographic images in caves. Pompeii had them. And more recently, in modern times, I used to work in electronics back in the 1980s. And if I had a dime, and I still get asked this, if I had a dime for every time somebody has asked me, well, this isn't going to be another VHS or beta, is it? You know, blah, 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 because everybody bought the beta machines and everything went to VHS. All right, the story behind that is first of all, that's kind of Sony's fault. Sony held on to that patent way too long. JVC, which I believe still owns it, licensed it right away. So all the manufacturers started making these VHS machines. But what put it over the edge was the porn industry went VHS. That's what did it, okay? High-speed internet, one of the driving forces behind high-speed internet, the porn industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that.
DVD. There was a big argument about formats. The industry followed, but the porn industry did. Same with Blu-ray. Blu-ray kind of had a short-lived thing because that kind of went straight into digital. And virtual reality. Virtual reality. The only thing that isn't getting virtual reality more widespread than what it is I've talked to a number of realtors who, for example, if you live out in California and you want to move to Texas, they wanted to do these virtual things where you could actually walk through the house. Now, the only problem with that is it requires a lot of hardware on both ends. So what they had to do for a national realtor, or a lot of realtors would join forces, they would set up offices in different regional areas and allow people to do this. But it wasn't widely adopted simply because there's too much hardware involved. But needless to say, this the blankety blank industry in the act is incorporating virtual reality as well. A new meaning to duck and cover, I might add. But anyway. And now with AI, okay, the person of your dreams, regardless of what that person may be, the person of your dreams is fully creatable. And I would say this has a number of odd things. You know, there's an impulse in me that wants to say, hey, look, this is just glorified masturbation. All right. You know, it's no big deal. On the other hand, I think because there is, and you have mentioned this in your article, is that because of the fact that these, and you know what, I'm not making this up, there are brothels available now.
Yeah.
In the United States that are robotic. Okay. Now, with that being said, I think when you start getting into that kind of technology, what is real and what is fantasy, what is technological, those lines get blurred. And I think the porn now, you know, it was a curiosity when I was a kid. it was a big deal to find a Playboy magazine or something like that in the bushes, and all the friends are like, hey, look at this. And it's a natural curiosity, for young people. It is. Okay, it's no big deal. I don't think this is the end of the world. But that part of it. But what the difference is now is you have young people whose impressions about what sex is supposed to be like, whose impressions about what relationship with human beings is supposed to be like regarding sexuality is being molded by some very dangerous images at a very young age. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, when I was 9 or 10 years old, I barely understood what I was looking at in those magazines. And to see what's available now, it is scary. So I think the potential for this AI to get into people's heads and mess around with it is much higher than just, like they always say, blowing a load in your sock or something like that. This is something that's way beyond that. This is messing with your emotions. It's messing with your psyche. It's messing with what you can evaluate as terms of what's real and what isn't. Would you want to comment about that? Because you touched on some of what I just said there.
Yeah, we have a population problem, which I actually foresee getting, excuse me, worse, because one of the main issues around the population problem is that women feel that men have not stepped up to emotionally evolve, and that the burden of the emotional relationship in a relationship actually lands on a woman, and women are just kind of tired of it, and they're like, I'd just rather not have kids. And I actually foresee this getting worse, because if your introduction to sensuality or sexuality is via a robot that doesn't actually have any consciousness, where do we draw the line of how people get introduced to sensuality, or what we think is actually okay? I don't have a problem with people doing whatever. Like, I'm very open-minded, but I am actually incredibly concerned about the fact that we're at how many men came into the comments of that comment I made on X that led to this story, that actually made it about hating women.
Yeah.
And it's like, we already have like 30% of young males have not had sex by the age of 30. We have a very well-known male loneliness epidemic, and I do not see that actually getting better. We have a mental health crisis. It's global, that's looking to get much worse over the next 10 years. One of the main reasons is because of technology. So if we don't start to have this conversation openly and say, sexualizing machines and normalizing having your sexual experiences with machines and seeing them as a sexual device is just one step away from treating a woman like property.
Yeah.
It's actually something that's why I'm so glad that you reached out to me to talk about this, because I think it's something that we're not seeing enough in media. Why is media not talking about this? Because they don't want to upset the potential advertising. And that's the thing I got from a lot of people. They're like, oh, it's just marketing. Oh, I'm sorry, you just dismissed the objectification of the female form, and sensuality is just marketing. It's not just marketing. This is actually really much more serious than that.
Yeah. This is one of those cases where I'm not sure this is art imitating life or life is being affected by art. A very famous actor, I won't say his name, was asked in an interview a number of years ago. And he caused quite a stir with this, but it is accurate. It is sadly accurate. Okay. He had a propensity to get involved with prostitutes. And the interviewer asked, hey, a lot of people don't understand this. I mean, you're handsome, you're rich, you can have any woman you want. They throw themselves at you. Why would you pay a woman for sex? And his answer was, I don't pay them for sex. I pay them to go away. Okay. Now.
Ouch. Oh, who was that? Was
Eddie
it
Murphy? No. But he caused quite a stir. It outraged a lot of people. But the fact of the matter is, it does speak to the fact that women and relationships are starting to get viewed as a major hassle. They are going to wreck your life. They're going to take half of everything you own.
Which is hilarious, because most men don't have anything.
Yes, that's so true.
It's like, oh, she's a gold digger, but you want her to do the emotional labor, the physical labor, and bring in half the money, and you don't pay for the dates anymore. So what's she getting out of this?
Exactly. Well, I got to tell you though, he summed up. That's what prostitution is for. That's what it's for. People don't. People. I know. I have women. I don't understand why women pay for sex. That's the answer. That's the answer right there. I don't have to bother with dates. I don't have to bother buying dinner. I don't have to bother and I just get what I want and go on my way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have to pretend to care.
That's right. So it's a sad commentary about the human condition. But it has to go with, and this is another area that I'll interject. I sometimes put in some things that are a little odd. Whatever you describe, whatever your belief is about creation, whether we were created by our creator or if we were happenstance and evolution came along, whatever your origin story is that you happen to believe in, there's one thing that is for sure. The drive for sex, and I mean pure sex, is one of the strongest instincts, one of the strongest urges that human beings have. And it has to be that way. Do you know why? Because if it wasn't, it wouldn't get done. Okay?
There'd be no children.
There would be no children. If sex was kind of like, I don't know, I guess sex is all right. The fact of the matter is you'd end up watching TV or something and you wouldn't be having sex, okay? And the species would not continue. So what we have is a situation where drive for this act is inherently very, very strong. And I don't know that we have matured as what you might call civilized human beings in a way that understands this and manages it properly. I think we've used a lot of our intellectual prowess to create all these different types of sexualities and all these different types of ways of having sex and incorporating technology or whatever, because we have all this energy and we now have this intellectually fueled imagination, that the same imagination that you pretend to be a rock star or an astronaut also enables you to be a sex god. Okay. And the same neurons are firing in either case. Okay. So how do we manage that, Cynthia? How do we get control of these primal urges? And now that we've developed an imagination that is very active.
Mm-hmm. I think that, we can talk about all sorts of different aspects of, the problems, but I think the problem always goes back to the same thing in terms of, anything related to sensuality or sexuality or the dehumanization of women. And that is the fact that we have a problem on planet Earth, and that women have worked really hard over the last few decades to evolve. And have they done it perfectly? No. Have they made some mistakes? Absolutely. But they have focused a lot of their energy on trying to grow as people, and yet men have not been under that same race, if you will, or they haven't done the same work. And it's showing itself now that, the divorce rate, when the coronavirus closures happened, like the divorce rate went off the charts because people had to spend time together. But the vast 70% of divorces are initiated by women. We have a male loneliness epidemic. We have a mental health crisis. We have an off the charts level of people who are self-harming that are men. And I think all of that goes back to the same thing. There's been very little focus within the masculine community in men evolving their emotional and mental wellness and having that as an open conversation and beginning to actually understand and push each other to grow. When you look at like even the comments that I got on my ex post, it was very childish. And it's like, oh, it's just marketing. It's like, well, how old are you? Like you're actually looking at a robot that's supposed to be able to clean houses. And she's got 2-inch nails and double Dees and 2-foot hair. And you think that she's a great design for a housekeeper. And it's like, but it goes at all of that, the male loneliness epidemic, the divorce rate, all of those things keep going back to this, the demise in our population increase, which it does have something to do with evolution, but also with money. But a huge part of it is that women are just like, I don't want to have kids and be the one that's responsible for doing everything. While I also work and bring in half the money, if not more. And we haven't seen men pushing each other to step up and evolve. And I've talked about this for years. I'm like, guys, there's a reason why it's 2025 and women, or 2024, 2020, whatever year it was. I was like, women will never get paid equally while men are in power and won't do something about it. And that is just one example of something that men stand by and go, well, it'll fix itself. It's not going to fix itself. Not when you're in charge, not when the vast majority of people in power are men. Men need to step up and start pushing each other to evolve and say, let's have a conversation as men about what's okay. Why am I, as a female, writing an article about why it's a problem that the vast majority of any robots that are designed to look like a woman look like porn stars?
Right.
That is a thing that men should be doing, and saying, why do we think this is normal? It's
Yes.
not normal, and it's not okay, and it's actually going to lead to more problems.
Yeah. I would have to say that I generally come off probably a little bit more conservative compared to you on a lot of our conversations, but this is one time I got to concede. I think that men have kind of lost their way. Now, that's not to say there haven't been factors.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that some of my male friends bring up to me, which I think is very legitimate, is the feminist movement now has made, even making the most casual comment, like "you look nice today," a point of contention. I didn't ask your opinion about what I look like. I didn't dress up for you because you're a man. That whole thing. It's almost impossible to ask a woman out without offending her. It's, and I'm not saying all the time, but these are things that men worry about. And it's even giving the most innocent compliment is potentially problematic. So with the exception of that little caveat, I would have to say that men are mostly to blame. The bad behavior, I think, is starting to become a little more recognized. Like, for example, in the workplace, I think there was like, in comparison with what it was like in the 1960s and stuff. If you watch shows like Mad Men and all that, which I think were actually pretty accurate in the way they depicted the office back then. The bad behavior, the entitlement to touch somebody that doesn't want to be touched, that type of thing, I think is starting to sink in with most men now. I think most of my friends who I would describe as alpha males, I think part of their alpha nature is not to be a pain in the ass to women. They want to protect women. They want to respect women. They want to treat them with dignity and so forth. Do you think that what I'm saying is true? Has there been improvement, let's say, over the last 40 years?
Yeah, I mean, I see it in my son, who's 18 years old. His tendency to be more respectful and be very careful about what he says and does. But even with him and his generation, they're not having they're beginning to. I don't want to make it sound like they're not, but we should have come so much further by 2025, and men having open conversations. Like, you look at the P. Diddy trial, which is dominating news. The number of women and men who have commented, "Why didn't she leave?" tells me how much work we have to do in this world. The fact that men are blaming what was a child, basically, a 19-year-old who met a very rich man. It tells me how much work we have to do. We have made progress, but not enough. So I talk about this a lot in my articles when I write about what men, with the fact that we need men to step up and begin to have these conversations openly and fearlessly. I worked for 30 years in corporate America, and not once in my career have I ever seen a man step up and say that behavior, which was completely inappropriate in the workplace, was inappropriate. Never once have I seen a man in 30 years in corporate America, in dozens and dozens of companies, defend a woman and stop behavior that was unacceptable. They were mute in the workplace. And I'm not the only woman who's seen this. It's like when you see a woman being sexually harassed and abused in a work environment, and you see no one do, even in public, like a big huge meeting or a board meeting, things like that, and no one ever says anything. No men who are, and I put it on to men because when a woman steps up and says something, they'll incinerate her career. But it's like when I just kept waiting for that man. When's that man going to step up? These are all signs of a problem within the male community. It's not. I mean, sure, could we blame women for kind of going to the extreme in some areas? Yeah, I mean, I'm refined enough to see those nuances, but this is not a situation that can be fixed by women.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I want to read a sentence that you wrote, and I would be willing to bet this made a lot of conservatives' head explode. But I'll read this. It says, "The prevalence of submissive, sultry, hyper-feminized robots is no accident. These creations are not neutral. They are reflections of our collective subconscious, programmed with centuries of patriarchal fantasy." Do you care to comment on that?
Yeah, well, they are. I think the reason why it was so upsetting for me to see that trend within artificial intelligence is I see AI as it's the fourth industrial revolution. It's happening right now, and it's like, are we really going to carry this garbage into our future? And if I'm anything, I'm an AI ethics advocate. And I want this conversation to take place, and I don't want to see the same problems be carried forward into this incredible revolution. Like, I love AI. Do I have huge issues with some of it? Yes, but I don't want to see us do this when we have time to stop it. And so I raised the flag and said, can we have this conversation and say, this isn't about me being threatened by robots. The number of men who used that as some kind of justification was like, I was kind of like, okay. You mean you can't just see the nuances here? But yeah, I think we need to be talking about these things now, because if we talk about them now, we can actually make the change now so that we're not battling this problem on even higher levels in a few years.
Another passage that I ran across that I really liked, and this speaks to what I said about this is different than back in the 70s when young kids just find a magazine and satisfy their curiosity. This is why it's different. Cynthia writes, I always want to call you shaman or Cynthia writes, I must remind us that AI is not conscious. These machines do not possess a soul, spirit, or lived experience. Yet, many of them are being wrapped in the illusion of emotional presence and physical allure. I find that a fantastic observation. And this is what I said. These AI creations are hitting on the same neurons that fire when you are with, quote unquote, a real person. And I think that has the potential to be very dangerous for everybody, not just men. And, I think men initially, because men are the ones that have the active attractions. But not that women don't misunderstand me, but there's this impulse that men have. I haven't felt it in a long time because I'm old as the hills now, but when you see an attractive woman, you get like this. Like I don't know how to describe it.
Let's be honest.
It's like a charge.
Men are programmed to procreate. Like
yes.
I am very aware of that, and I don't have a problem with that. I think that's something that we should acknowledge openly and actually kind of embrace for what it is, and have more honest conversations about it instead of shaming men for something that they're actually programmed to do.
Yes. And you get this surge of excitement. And it's nothing. I know that people are going to make it something ugly, but it's really, you have this desire to mate, this a desire to fall in love. It's this active excitement, the butterflies, that's often described. And so, I mean, that here again, that's now being that normally doesn't come with, let's say, masturbation, but now with this technology, all those triggers in your mind, all those emotions, all those feelings, all those instincts are being satisfied by artificial means. I think that's what the real danger is, and what you. Yes. Okay.
Yes. No, I love that you brought that up, Billy, because I think this is something I've been actually thinking about a lot. I'm seeing there's this. I've seen a few articles about this. There are people who are having spiritual psychosis come on because of their conversations with artificial intelligence, and they believe that AI is sentient. This is one of the reasons why I wrote that in that article. Um, it is incredibly dangerous for people to walk into this future with the misunderstanding of what artificial intelligence is, and to begin to have a relationship with it as though it is actually a human being. I think this is something that needs to be taught, and it's not something we're even talking about. We should be teaching our children now at the youngest possible age the difference between a machine with data that it can access that appears to be intelligent and loving and kind and caring, and a human being. And if we do not make that difference really quickly and begin to teach it really quickly, we're going to go through a really difficult phase of having to send people almost to a rehab to get them off of their fix with AI, because they're going to, I mean, it's going to become, and I see that it will become a companion, but training people to understand what that companion really is and what they're investing their life force energy and believing that it is actually really important.
Yeah. I would say this too, in all fairness. I think that, we're talking specifically about sexual stimulation here, which is probably harder for men to control than it is for women. I'm sure there are people who'll take issue with that statement, but it's probably true.
It's true.
Okay. But here's the caveat. There's other things that AI is getting involved in that very well understands what the desires of women are.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think women are just as vulnerable to other types of manipulation.
Yeah.
It's just like the romance novels on steroids.
I was just about to say that. I'm like, it's romance novels on steroids, and then you said it.
Yes.
It is. And women could actually become dependent on that as their source of romance and love. Like, it gives the illusion of love, but it's not the energy. I think the thing, and I have to bring this up as somebody who works in the spiritual and metaphysical world, frequency and vibration are everything. They are our life experience. They are how you are feeling in this given moment. And it is the illusion of something that doesn't actually have substance. An AI cannot give you the frequency and vibration of actual love. And people becoming dependent on a machine for an experience that doesn't actually give them the energy of it is really dangerous.
Yes. I 100% agree with that. So we're going to have to examine. I think one of the things you've also said in the past is that we talk so much about artificial intelligence. We need to bolster our natural intelligence. We have to examine our own awareness in terms of what is making us feel a certain way. Are we being manipulated? Women, for example, clothing, fashion, what they feel about themselves, what makeup they use. These are all things that can be extensively manipulated by artificial intelligence. So the possibility of being manipulated and hurt by this, I think, for everybody, no matter how you identify, as they say now, I think that could be a problem for all of us.
Yeah, can I give you an example really quick?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
So Facebook was caught doing a thing with young people, young women,
Mm-hmm.
in that when they deleted a photo from their Instagram, they would then send them advertising for makeup and weight loss stuff. Children, these are kids, these are
Yes.
young women. And they were doing it for a very long time. And it's like, people are like, gee, why do we have women with anorexia? And could it be because, so that's just an example. That was going on 10 years ago.
Yep.
And it's like, now we've got AI there. It's actually a really important conversation.
Yeah. You were in the modeling field, and you know how powerful those images are, and now they can be programmed to get in your head. And you made a statement before we go on to the next topic, and I think we've done a pretty good job of covering this, but I did want to ask you about this. You have this under a heading about reclaiming our own creative power, and you say that we are the creators, and that power comes with responsibility. We must program ethics, values, and conscious design principles to program intelligence. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so one of my big things is getting people to have open public conversation about the concerns around artificial intelligence, and beginning to actually bring these things, engaging the public in this discourse. Because when you look at history, one of the reasons that we've had, these phases of issues and challenges is because we stood by mute as they unfolded, as though we were voiceless. And I do not want us to be voiceless in this issue. And I want us to come out and talk about we are not having enough conversations publicly around the ethics around what is happening with AI. Just as an example, like I'm an artist. I'm an artist in many different ways, and I believe everyone is an artist and a creator, and we need to be doing that. We actually all stood by just recently and watched a handful of companies steal the history of art and intellectual thought and use it to create billion-trillion-dollar companies, and nothing was said or really done about it. As a matter of fact, that conversation was really muted, and I believe it was done almost on a subconscious level in a fear of preventing progress, because America is very much obsessed with trying to stay ahead of things, and AI is a big thing. And I love AI, but how the hell are we not having conversations about the fact that AI, as it exists right now, was built off of the shoulders, the height that our past artists, writers, and people. And if we're going to keep, are we going to keep doing that with AI? Are we just going to keep letting these moments go by? And I really don't want us to do that, because the amount of work it will take to undo these issues is hard for people who are really young to imagine. I've watched it. I'm in my 50s now. I have actually watched us have these moments and not do anything about it, and then watch us try to undo it.
Mm-hmm.
Like our privacy being lost to tech. You can't undo that now.
No. And you know what? I'll say this about our privacy being lost. It's so many people surrender it. I'm always amazed by people's bios. They practically have their medical records posted there with all the things that all the things that they're suffering from and all the medications that they're on. So yeah, that's interesting. Some great points, Cynthia. I'll before we go, we're going to talk about James Comey here just in a moment in the last third of our program here, but I'm going to ask you if you've experienced this. The technology around what the phones are doing is pretty interesting. For example, if you and I are in close proximity and you do a search for a new car, that technology presumes that I and myself and you are having a conversation about buying a car. So it will also send me things about a new car based upon our conversation, whether we're looking for a sports car or Jeep or whatever. Okay. And I think that a lot of people suspect that they are listening to audible sounds, because there are times when you have a conversation about something comes up on your feed the next time you open your phone up. I ran across a post the other day that I found very interesting, because this happened to me in the last week and I thought it was my imagination. Okay. But apparently more people are saying this now. I ran across this post where a woman was talking that she was thinking about something, and she opened her phone up and it came up.
Oh yeah. Oh, this happens to me all the time now.
Okay.
Like just today, I was laughing because I've been very open about the fact that I'm celibate, and as a spiritual teacher, that's okay. I'm waiting to meet somebody who's worthy of this goddessness. And anyway, I was thinking to myself as I was taking the dog for a walk around the block without my phone, I was thinking about the fact that I actually qualified to be a nun. Okay, and then I open my phone and I get 3 videos in social media about nuns, which I have not gotten one of in the last few months. Never searched nuns, never looked it up, never talked about it openly as far as I know or remember. And my phone immediately delivered the second video when I got back from my walk was about nuns, and I was like, oh my God, this is freaking me out.
Yeah. So this is something I'm going to pursue a little bit. See how many people have actually experienced this, because I find it very fascinating that these things are maybe when we say listening to you, it may mean more than just what we normally think about in terms of listening. So that's interesting. Okay. We always try to hit at least one current topic, and one of the ones that's been burning up the internet here in the last 24 hours or so is James Comey. James Comey, former FBI director, was interviewed, I guess, today by Secret Service agents. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean something as heavy as it sounds, because this is obviously something that is routine when somebody does something like this. He apparently arranged, or he photographed an arrangement, whether he did it or not, I don't know, a formation of seashells, which reads 8647. Now, 86 is when somebody says something about something being 86, that usually means it's been canceled or whatever. And 47, of course, is the number of President Trump in terms of his number of presidents. So a lot of people have taken this to mean something potentially violent, like canceling 47. And that word canceling can mean a lot of things. Can it mean impeaching, or can it mean
Come on,
canceling?
Bill. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Well,
Come
I'm
on.
just throwing this out there as, points of discussion here. Because for example, in accounting, when you 86 a program, you just cancel it. Okay. So what I'm getting at here is, at the very least, in my opinion, for somebody who has his stature as somebody who is an FBI director, this was a stupid thing to do. On the more nefarious side, it was malicious. It was something that was designed to motivate somebody to have bad ideas. What do you say about this? I know you're fired up. You just can't wait to get into it. Go ahead.
I know. Sorry, I can't, this one really gets me. First of all, while he's done a lot of dumb things, I don't think he's actually, in fact, stupid. I ask myself, like, what is this a call for attention? Is this like he's already in the cooker and the crap's already hitting the fan? So is this like a call for attention? He's not dumb enough to post something like that without understanding what. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you can be the FBI director, knowingly post something that obvious, which, I mean, I think anybody over the age of 25 knows what 86 someone means. And do that without knowing that there's going to be repercussions, which makes me think, did he ask his lawyer? Did he pre-plan this? Like, I just don't see, unless he was wasted on the beach and he did this. I don't see how he did this without giving some thought or having some reason for it. Because he doesn't need to go on freaking Twitter with a photo or Instagram or whatever the heck it was. He doesn't need to do that. He's a gray man and he oversaw gray men. And if he wanted to tell people that he needs to be taken out, he sure as hell wouldn't do it publicly like that. Like, the whole thing just, it makes me ask why. Less about like what was wrong with what he did and more about what is this actually about, because I don't think it's about what it seems to be about.
That could be. And as you pointed out before, we're in the attention economy now. And I would say that here again, in some respect, was he orchestrating something himself? I would say probably not. That's very unlikely. Was he trying to do something provocative? Was he trying to be an agitator? The answer is probably yes. But we don't know. And here again, I wouldn't read. Everybody says, "Oh, the Secret Service is talking to him. He's in big." Anytime something like this happens, especially with a former governmental official, they vet that person. They want to make sure they know what was going on inside his head. Make sure they have an understanding of what happened. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be arrested, but I do find it. For people who make light of it, I've run across a lot of people making light of it. I pride myself on not being an ideologue. Okay. And let's say Pete Hegseth did the same thing for Obama or Biden. With all these people that are excusing James Comey, would they be saying the same thing? Probably not.
No.
Okay. I can tell you, because I'm not an ideologue, this deserves to be looked at. And I would say it in any case, whether it's James Comey or whether it's Pete Hegseth, if if this is something that needs to be looked at, it needs to be looked at.
Mhm.
And I think we have too many people out there who say, well, this guy's on my team, so it's okay. And this guy isn't on my team, so we're going to bury him. To just be objective, that's my humble philosophy. What response to that? What do you have to say?
Yeah, no, I think it has to be looked at, but I think they need to actually ask themselves, like, okay, is there was he in an altered state when he did this? And if he wasn't in an altered state when he did this, what was his actual objective? Because he's not dumb enough to dumb. I just don't believe that. I don't believe he's dumb enough to have posted that without having some reasoning behind why he did it. Was it to get attention? Was it to get people on his side? Because he already knows he's up, he's screwed. I'll tell you an interesting story, Billy. I happened to be going through my chat GPT to delete stuff, and I saw almost a year ago, when you and I were doing the show for the election, I had looked up who would want to kill Trump. They were on the list.
Mm-hmm.
I actually asked them because I kept getting visions. I'm an intuitive, and
Mm-hmm.
we all are, but I'm one who's practiced at it, and I kept getting visions that were really quite terrifying. And I knew that there were people who wanted to take him out because they were afraid of the era he would usher in, as we see now. No wonder
Yeah.
they're scared. He's ushering in amazing things that are leaving them on the sidelines. And they were some of them. So maybe it was a call to the people that were aligned with that kind of behavior. I don't know, but it's more duplicitous than it seems.
Yeah. I guess if I would use your terms, to me, this guy's got bad energy. I don't. James Comey's got bad energy. I
He
feel
always did.
he always did a bad energy, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of the guy at all. So anyway, we always kind of wrap up with what we are doing now. Cynthia, you got a lot going on, and I know you've been doing the clothing for a while, but I'm noticing it more and more. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, a few years ago, I got frustrated with the fashion industry because I worked in it for 20 years, and I wanted to produce to show them that you could produce American goods in America. And so I created Intention Fashion, which is my collection of multi-purpose pieces, meaning every piece in the collection can be worn a ton of different ways. They're really minimalist, and so I've really reignited my support for that, because I had the books coming out for a couple of years, and it was like draining my soul. And so I excited about that, to get that back out there, especially while we're talking now nationally about American goods. A lot of people don't realize that the vast majority of fashion is made like trash. And so I'm very proud of this collection because it's really beautifully made. But the thing I'm super excited about is that September 4th in Boca Raton, I'm hosting the Soul Tech Future Festival, and I've got some incredible speakers lined up. This is to bring the conversation about what a future in AI can look like to the surface, because we hear from the Sam Altmans of the world and the Elon Musks of the world. We hear their thoughts on things, but we, the public, are not actually out there having conversation about what we want to see in these transformative times. And if we don't have those conversations, we'll get what we get. And so I'm really super excited about that. So people can go to shamanisis.com or soultechfoundation.org and learn all about that. Thank you, Billy.
Oh, well, you are very welcome. You always got some really cool stuff going on. I myself, Billy Dees podcast. You can find the Billy Dees podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. We have nearly a 10-year history now, and that's on all the major platforms. So anywhere you search about podcasts, you will find the Billy Dees podcast. As far as social media goes, I would have to say that X, the former Twitter, is still our social media home at Billy Dees. We have a Billy Dees podcast Facebook page, which is very small, but what I like, what I've noticed about the page is there's a lot of people who are engaged. There's a lot of people who maybe have their own business or they're creators of themselves. And we don't just post, oh, you look at our latest episode, it's so great. We do more things than that. We talk about what we're doing behind the scenes. Sometimes I talk about new equipment. I talk about some of our strategies on social media. So I go over a lot of things, and that's become a kind of a nice, cool place. And it's a small page, but like I said, people do search it out and get value from it. And there's no paywalls with any of our social media or our subscriptions on the platforms as far as listeners go. We do not make people hit paywalls. So Thank you all very much for listening. Cynthia, thank you. It was great. Absolutely wonderful having you back on the show again.
Yeah, I had a good time, Billy. As always, you're a wonderful host.
Oh, well, thank you. So, all right. Thank you very much for checking out our program, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Billy Dees podcast. Follow Billy Dees on X @BillyDees for updates about the program.
Do you listen to music or audiobooks on streaming devices such as Sonos or Amazon speakers? How about on your car sound system? If you use Spotify, Audible, or Amazon Music on any of these systems, you can also listen to the Billy Dees podcast the same way. Billy and his team go the extra mile to make sure our podcasts sound as good or better than anything on the radio. Listening to the Billy Dees podcast has never been easier. You literally just have to ask.